In this video, we will show how to work with delayed tasks on the server, meaning to set a task that will be executed after a certain time or at a specific time. The code for this example can be found below this video. Let's open it and click Fork to create your own version of the code. And then we will play around with it, maximizing this window. So we see a panel similar to the one at McDonald's for orders. We click Create Order, and we see that our first order has appeared, and we notice that after a certain time, it seems that after 3 seconds, it changed to the done status. If we create additional orders now, we will observe how they shift from the left column to the right. How does it work? This entire page is the backend code for our server, and there is documentation on scheduling delayed tasks. This server file delivers a component that always renders. The component isn't our main focus right now. We are observing the server request that takes place when we click this button, Create Order. It's quite straightforward. We tally the orders, and if they surpass 1,000, we reset to 0 to prevent the counter from incrementing every time, to ensure it doesn't exceed 3 digits. And we simply add 100 to make sure it stays above 100. So, there are always 3 digits that don't start with 0. What's next? We generate a new order, and in the next call, we assign the job. This means we call a specific piece of code that is designated and created through the app.job function. Thus, the app.html and app.post functions determine how the server behaves when contacted, and here it provides an HTML response. It generates an HTML page, processes the post request, and sends back a JSON response. Thus, the app.job function defines the code that will execute at a specific time or after a certain delay. It's simple. It raises the order and changes its status. To change an order's status, this function must know which order it is working on, so each order has a specific job. How does it work? There are 2 arguments for this function, context and parameters. And when we set the function, meaning we specify that this function should be executed, we define the parameters it will use, and we do it this way. We specify the function name, followed by shadow job after, and in this instance, we execute this job after 3 seconds in this manner. Parameters. You can use other calls besides after 3 seconds too. You can call it ASAP, meaning as soon as possible. You can call it at a certain time, such as tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. In this way, the function decides what to invoke. Then we define at what time and with what parameters. That's basically it. Next, we look at the view component, which is very simply structured. If we invoke it now, we can observe how it functions in a separate window. If we call it here, refresh one page, and check the preview, we will see that these orders work across 2 windows. They synchronize through very simple code that reads all the orders from the database. So here, fetch orders is called. In this function, it reads all the available data, excluding anything from the last hour, that is, selecting them no more than 1 hour old. It all goes into a table, the table of orders. Let's take a look at it, just to see that we have all our orders somewhere in the table. So the whole example consists of creating an order, placing it in a table, and a specific code transferring this order to the server, not the client, which will be executed in 3 seconds. That is, for example, how this differs from a client call. If we were to make this transfer using app.post, the transfer would only occur when the person has their browser open. Instead, we created the order right away and immediately set it to be transferred in 3 seconds. That is, regardless of whether the person is looking at the page or not, the server will execute this code anyway. This is the main difference between server and client requests. It is also important to understand that in AppJob we do not have user context. That is, if we try to get user data for the CTX user here, it will always be empty. In other words, when we perform app.post, we are aware of who is executing it, whether it's the administrator or a specific user. However, once we set Job, we lose that user. If we need any information about them, we must also pass it in the parameters.